to Get With the Programming. I'm Chase Ingram.
I'm Captain
And
America.
along with me is Bill Grundler.
Wolverine.
And Halpin, we still got to get you music.
One day.
We need like some beat-bop music or
No,
something.
we need the
Yeah, I
theme
need like just a
from-
computer overload.
Yeah, the theme music from Nerds.
Oh, okay. I see where
You
this
know-
is. Thanks, guys. That's what we're doing here tonight.
I was talking to the guys, and it's like we should. It's like, and Mike Halpin, ladies and gentlemen, from Known and Knowable. If you guys haven't checked out that Instagram, they've got all the stats for the season and some. He does a lot of work all over the place. Does some Be Friendly a lot as well. And we recruited your services for this show. This is a show that stemmed from something we had done about 3 weeks ago. Bill, about 3 weeks ago, we tried to tackle the question, how to make the Open matter again from a competitive standpoint, from a fan standpoint, and I think more from the fan and standpoint.
Well, there wasn't a way other than it's like everything went to make the Open. It was super dramatic, and you can't do super dramatic. I mean, it's the Open. You want it to be fun. You want it to be engaging. And we talked about how it needs to be engaging, and we need to engage our community. And I mean, dude, you did a great job.
Thank you.
That was a great idea, my friend.
All right. So to catch everybody up to speed, the concept was, oh, yes, I did come off that. I don't know if you're clicking that or I'm clicking that. But the concept is the end of quarterfinals as we look towards semifinals. Last year, the CrossFit Games team allocated minimum games qualifying spots for 7 semifinals, being North America, East and West, Europe, Africa, Oceania, South America, and is that it? Asia?
I like you got.
In Asia. Yeah.
In Asia.
I think Oceania, and then I think you said Asia. So there's your 7, right? They gave them minimum spots, and then they did what they called the Dahant method, where they passed around game spots based off the top 100 in the worldwide ranking system. And how they use the worldwide ranking system is that people got points on their finish in the Open worldwide, and then quarterfinals, and then semifinals, and then the games. And as you move through the season, the quarterfinals, semifinals, you got more points at the bigger events. And then you got the most points at the CrossFit Games. The hard part there was they would take a 2-year look back at past competition to basically give future competitions a competitive compensation based off the strength of the field. And I think almost everyone in this group and some didn't really sit well with us when we're looking at actual competitive competition on the floor as it's happening and looking at past performance as if that's supposed to mean anything in the present time.
Right. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah. I mean, the fact is that when it comes down to sports, the second it's 3, 2, 1, go, anything can happen. And so I don't think that someone should get a bye into the finals because of those sort of things. So I personally had a really hard time with that. And it should be the year of. That's the strength of that year, not the past year.
And with that, and there's a couple of pitfalls, is because Asia is guaranteed, as it stands now, 2 spots for the games. South America, 2 spots. Oceania, 3 spots. U.S. semifinals, 5 each, and Europe with 5. That's the minimum guarantee. Africa had 1. They have 1 man, 1 woman, and 1 team. And the big thing that you hear a lot of statisticians out there is that based off this current worldwide ranking system, using 2 years looking back, and this escalating point system through the season, is that it's statistically impossible for Africa to ever get an extra spot. Matt, Mike,
whatever my name is.
Matt, Mike,
yeah.
Tell us why that's the case with this current system.
And it's something I know. I'll give the credit to Brian Spin. It's something that he wrote an article about shortly after those rules came out. Is basically, and as you said, there's 2 years to look back. Well, if it's a different male or female athlete or a team, well, the teams don't count here exactly. But if it's a different person each time, they're only going to be able to get a few points. And not only are we seeing where the athletes, there's only one of them. Historically, those athletes don't do too well in the 40-person field at the games. So they're not even really going to the games and getting the most points they possibly could. So when you run that through the system, Africa gets 1 last year, this year, next year with the current system. And so that's what we're trying to fix a little bit here, at least gamify it within the season to say, if you want more spots, get more spots.
And here's where we're going to focus on for the next hour and a half. First of all, thank you guys for being here. We've got a slew of people coming to join us. We've got some people waiting in the wings, some surprise guests. But here's the system that we're creating going into semifinals this year. The Open and Quarterfinals, your worldwide placing in both, is your strength of field top 100 for the semifinals. CrossFit can still keep the worldwide ranking system for the fun numbers, the AP coaches poll in, NCAA football, or, pro football focus of the top 15 teams in the NFL. Those are fun numbers to talk about, but these are the numbers that we want to use for the competitive landscape. So the way you finish in the Open and quarterfinals will dictate the top 100 worldwide, averaging those places together. Mike has gone through and done all of this for us and some. Once we do this, this is the strength of field for semifinals, the semifinal strength of field. After we get those top 100, after 3 weeks of the Open and 3 submission dates in quarterfinals, we're going to take that top 100 and then look at what the percentage allocation is at every semifinal and then run the DeHunt method. After that, we're going to get the legitimate strength of field because it's the strength of the field that is competing on the floor in the individual competition. So we went the next step and removed all team athletes who qualified in the top 100 completely out, moving up the next group of athletes and then running it one final time to get the final real in-person strength of field calculation, using your performance in the Open and quarterfinals, and then running the DeHunt method. And at the end of the day, we're going to see how much that changed, if at all. Was it 1 spot, 2 spots all around the world, or was it the exact same? And then on top of that is we're going to show you guys what a weekly show would look like running this week to week through the Open and quarterfinals. So I guess nothing to it but to do it, right? That it?
Yeah.
One, man.
A lot of preamble. I know the comments are already wondering what they're here for. It's gonna get good, I promise. Well, I have a vested interest in this getting good.
Yes.
But,
Mike spent weeks putting all of these numbers together and the graphics. So if it's amazing, this was my idea. I take all the credit. And if it sucks, you can just go to Known and Knowable and just tell them how much you guys hated it. So without further ado, we're going to send the wizard back behind the curtain and bring in our first guest.
Well.
Mr. Andrew Hiller, welcome to the show. Welcome, everyone. This is week 1 of the 2023 CrossFit Games Open, and we are starting things off with our Inside the Leaderboard show. I'm Chase Singham with Bill Grundler, and Mr. Andrew Hiller is joining the show. What's up, bro?
Hey, how are you?
Hey, how's the bowels doing after your meat extravaganza?
They're better at the moment as I've had some carbs.
You had some carbs, yeah.
They go a long way.
Bottle it back up.
I thought the meats were great, dude. Don't stop.
Have you been doing it?
I'm a meat eater, dude. Yeah.
Solely though?
Like not solely, but like I'm a meat and fruits guy.
Yeah, that didn't do me in quite like meat alone did.
All right. Well, hey, we're going to go through week 1 of the Open. Before we get there, we'd like to talk about what the Open actually was when we look at where we started all the way back in 2023, and it started off with 23.1. Bill, I know your thoughts on this Open workout. This is one of my favorite ones ever programmed. Hiller,
Agreed.
How about yourself as far as this one shakes out?
I think that this might be my favorite Open workout ever created. I'm a big fan of this.
What I'm curious to see is that we're going to run a strength of field calculation and DeHunt method after every week of the Open. And I'd be curious to see like how close this got from the final tally. Right?
Well,
and so week 1,
it's just so pure. It's so pure CrossFit of what we do. It's got all of our movements in there, and it builds nicely. So what's great about it for being in the Open is everyone can play. And then you'll get to that final part with the muscle ups. Like the elites will go through that, and it's like, okay, how many calories are they going to get after that? But everyone else gets to play. It's a perfect setup for the Open and for the community, involved to get in.
And these are the numbers we're going to be looking at the entire time that we're going here. These are the actual numbers from last year's semifinals. Africa got 1 male and 1 female. Asia got 2 and 2. Europe ended up with 11 and 11. North America East, 11 women, 12 men. North America West, 10 women, 9 men. Oceania, 3 and 3. South America, 2 and 2. Now, something to note that the 3-3, 2-2, and 1 were what they were already given to start the season, so nothing changed. They didn't get an extra spot based off the worldwide ranking strength of field. So let's go back and look at what happened in 2023. This is what we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at the leaderboard. We'll go through top performances. For the men, it was Roman Karenikov, 306, Cole Griesaber, and Pat Vellner. On the women's side, we had Emma Carey, Mal O'Brien, just 2 points back, and Laura Horvath, just 6 reps back from that. Some of your top performance highlights, you guys can go see them on YouTube, Karenikov and Emma Carey's finish. And this is what we're doing here. Every single week, we're going to look at what the landscape would look like if we stop the competition after every week, and we'll advance forward. So we're going to take the top 100 in the Open after week 1. Something to note, these are your seven semifinal locations. Every single semifinal will only get 1, as opposed to last year where we had 5s for Europe and North America, 3 for Oceania, 2 for Asia, South America, and 1 for Africa. We are only going to start with 1 guaranteed spot. The next 33 are up for grabs based off the Open performance with quarterfinals and the Dahant method going from there. Hiller, just off the bat, what are your thoughts on maybe a single spot allocation versus these multiple spots allocations that they had last year?
All you can do is potentially build upon the ones that never had a chance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of the purpose of it? Such as,
yeah,
wasn't it something Halpin brought up?
One.
Africa never had a chance to get another person ever.
Exactly. And the reason why Africa never had a chance is that if you only have 1 representative at the games every year, how can you get more using the worldwide ranking system? But when you look at the Open and the quarterfinals, and it's wide open to the world and your other constituents, now these, I would say, tier 2 represented, not quality, tier 2 represented semifinals actually have a legitimate shot of possibly getting that extra spot in the future. Let's look at what it looks like after 1 week for the men. These are your top 100 spots allocated per semifinal. Europe is sitting with 40. North America East, 27. North America West, 20. South America has 7. Oceania 6, with Asia and Africa ending up with 0. If you're going to run the Dahant method based off these top 100 for the men worldwide, this is what your semifinal spots would look like. Europe would get 14 spots for the men. North America East, 10. North America West, 8. Africa and Asia get their 1. Oceania gets 2 on top of the 1 that they were allocated. And South America actually gets 2 as well. So that's what it looks like if we just ended it after week 1 of the Open.
And I think that this is a really important slide to kind of keep in your mind, because we already said how great of a workout 23.1 was. And if we use that as a kind of a marker for CrossFit and we look at, okay, how is this going to look at the end? Like, I think this is one of the most important ones. And the fact we lucked out by getting this great of a workout as the first event, to compare that to what do we actually have that actually make it to the games.
And if you think about what those numbers were at the end of last year, it was 11 Europe, 11 North America East, I think 10 North America West, with 2, 3, 2 in Asia. So that's it for the men as we look towards the top 100 cut line. Now, here's what's important, because every week we're going to look at who's on the outside of the top 100 looking in. And I was talking to Mike this morning, and he says, here, Mike, I'm going to bring you in to confirm this.
Tonight is Halpin Super Bowl, Cave Dastro.
Is that
my goodness, this is what I love right here. Yes, to confirm, this is 96 through 105, and we're going to look at this every single week. And what this really looks like is who is fighting and who they're fighting for. So if you look at somebody like Keelan Henry from the 2022 games, he is sitting just on the outside. You saw 0 athletes from Africa represented in the top 100. Ooh, I like the music for sure. And just smooth here. If he can fight and people alongside him can fight for those spots, they could add another spot to Africa. They're hard pressed to do it with, like, as you can see right there on the cut line, just basically more and more East, West, and Europe athletes. But it's athletes like Keelan Henry, and we'll see it on the women's side as well, that can really push the needle here for their region.
And the other thing I asked you too is that rough math, just for people watching along, is that somewhere around 3 athletes can turn the tide to get an extra spot or lose a spot in and out of the top 100. Is that close enough for just
fuzzy math? But yeah, along with the 1 that they get minimum, if they get to like a 4, you're going to see them creep in and be able to get 1 more spot.
Yeah. All right.
I got a question for Halpin before he leaves. What happens if, say, HWPO moves to Africa and they bring everyone with them? Does it really change the entire landscape of this, or no?
In this case, and we'll see it with athletes like Michelle Basnet. She trained with Taylor Self in one of the Carolinas, I believe, North Carolina, and she still counts towards Africa. So it would depend on their citizenship and how long they've been there. We have seen athletes like a Roman Krenikov, who was in Asia and moved obviously to Mayhem in the East. He was able to get an exemption in that case, so he was all of his 2 years in the current CrossFit system went with him. So that is a big swing for these tier 2 regions, as we're calling them, of what they can really do if there's a big hole, or the opposite that you're talking about. If all of a sudden a bunch of athletes are pushed into these smaller regions, and you have something more like back in the sanctional days and things like that, where they could just sort of compete wherever they were, that it could really swing that way. Yep.
All right. Thank you, Mike. And we'll revisit this at the end of each one. And so that's the top 100 for the men. So now you can see is like, okay, if North America West wants to get that spot back, then they're going to have to get 3 or 4 guys back up in the top 100. So now let's look over to the women's side. And after week 1 of 23.1, you have a 23-23 split in North America East and West, 41 in Europe, 0 in Africa, 6 in Oceania, 4 in South America, and 3 in the top 100 in Asia. For the men, there was actually 0 that they had that. And let's look at what those spots would look like going into semifinals. And that means European women currently are holding on to 15 spots for their semifinal. And now it's only a field of 40, and you're taking 15 if it were to end after week 1 of the Open.
That's so many, dude. That's such a big chunk of the field right there.
What was the actual number?
11.
11.
Right?
Or
Crazy.
yeah. For Europe last year, it was 11. 11 for Europe, 11 for North America East, and 10 for North America West.
So have you guys done this where you go back and you look at the semifinal field and you see who would have made it and who hadn't?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. Oh,
Yes.
wait, hold on.
Yeah, we'll have that. We'll have that when you bring you and our next guest in for week 2, if you want to stick around for one more segment. But that will close out the week 1. As we said, we were going to look at the top 100 each time, and it's like, look, not only did Europe have 15, but they have 3 more women
sitting right in the
just
wings
on the
right
outside
there.
looking in.
Gosh.
It could be as high. It could be as high as getting another. There's your 3 athletes. If they bump in and say they knock out a East-West in North America, now you're looking at a 7 and a 9 and 17 spots.
And what's crazy is, that next event that's coming up, it's a 2-parter. So like it would be possibly very easy to have those 3 athletes bump up, based on what the points are. Crazy.
So that'll wrap week 1. As we close out week 1 of the Open, we will be right back with our new line of guests as we look forward to week 2 of the Open here for semifinals. All right, back for week number 2. We just had week 1 go down as we have new spots. We're going to welcome Andrew Hiller and Mr. Brian Spin from the Barbell Spin as we look at week 2. Brian, I know you were in the background watching week 1 go, and how'd that first week go?
Europe gets a lot of spots, right? They better, but as John Young likes to tell me, it's only the first week, so there's still a lot of time left. Just like any competition, don't judge it by the first day.
And what we're going to start doing going forward is we are going to start looking at who could possibly have been left out if these were actually going to be the final spots each week as the Open. So we finish week 1 of the Open as we look towards week number 2, and week number 2 is going to kick off with a little bit of a two-parter. Some would say a potentially burpee walk, burpee pull-up walk, depending if you're Andrew Hiller and Bill Grundler, followed by a 1-rep max thruster. Now, this is where it gets interesting, guys, because we talk a lot about maybe single modality tests in the Open, specifically lifts. I know I've said that quite a bit. With this type of strength of field scoring system, where it's heavily weighted on the Open, what do you guys think about something like a single modality test being in the Open now?
I still don't like it as with the number of events that you have to deal with. At least you have the Open and the quarterfinals that all kind of count to that. But remember, if you have someone that can lift really, really, really big, and that's their one trick pony into there, that's going to help with a lot of points.
But what about hurt too?
But what about
an athlete?
Oh, a can of hurt? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the last thing you want is if you don't have the numbers, whether it's on the burpee pull up here or on the lift, then it's going to knock. If you're right on that bubble, if you're on that line, then you're going to hurt your entire region, not just yourself.
Hiller, what about you?
I just can't wait to see what they come out with this year. All right, we got to make sure they can't walk this year.
All right, week 1 down. As we look forward to week 2, here's what we have on the docket. We are going to look at the week 2 winners and their top performances. We're going to distribute the top 100 after 2 weeks of competition from the Open, as well as run a new DeHaan method for the games qualifying spots. We already did that for week 1. As a refresher, this is what we're looking at over the next 6 scored weeks is how close is it going to get to last year's CrossFit Games strength of field. As we saw the numbers earlier between the men and the women, every semifinal was allocated a certain number of spots. In our system, it's only 1. That leaves 33 more spots available for these semifinals. So let's look at top performances in week number 1. You have 23.2, Charles Coran, Diego Calderon, and Victor Jungdahl. For the burpee pull-up shuttle run, Mal Bryant, Fee Sagafi, and Runalyn Egeland out of Europe for 23.2A. 23.2B, no shocker here. If you guys know who Graciano is, at 375-pound thruster, followed by Brett Presley and Martin Pfeifferlich, and then 23.2B. And this is actually, I thought, interesting here, is that outside Barrett Coons, on the women's side, you have Kelsey Keel and Christine Middleton, who are quality athletes that aren't just out there hitting a lift and piecing out. Much different it seemed for the women than it did for the men.
No, that's absolutely right. When you think about, especially like Barrett Coons, right? Like because she finishes first, it doesn't really impact the leaderboard, right? It's more about when you have these athletes that are 6th, 7th, 15th, 38th, who are anomalies. They're the ones that impact the leaderboard when it comes to these 1-rep max lifts.
Right.
So it's okay to have Olympic lifters jump in on this and take the top 10 spots because everybody loses the same amount of spots. It's those kind of far end of the bell curve athletes but aren't quite the highest, where you can have some separation where Kelsey Keel or Christine can get extra points against the rest of the field.
And so what I'm curious is that you have those athletes that maybe don't have the biggest thruster. They're great, phenomenal athletes. And with this scoring system using the Open as part of it, you could lose a couple hundred spots on the leaderboard and fall out of the top 100 and not be a factor in the strength of field for semifinals the way we're doing it.
Oh, absolutely.
Which, as we said before, Bill and I, is like in this new system is like programming, once again, is the focal point of this system. And how do we do it appropriately?
Yeah, and I mean, especially when if you have a system, if they take this system that you've set up here, if they take it this way, and they now have the importance of the Open, and it actually means something, it can't be just okay, it's a community, anyone can do it, because it matters, and it's got to be built in a way that you can have the community as well as your elite level actually get after it and have it mean something where they're really pushing to get those points. Because you're right, when you have everybody involved, you have a bad lift that day, that could very well put you 300 spots out.
All right, let's look forward to the highlights of the weekend. These are your top athletes for 23.2A and 23.2B, just to watch some people lift heavy. And this is what we're looking at. We're going to take the top 100 out of the Open week in and week out. After this, we'll look at quarterfinals, and that will also be combined with your worldwide place during the Open plus quarterfinals. Every semifinal is going to get one allocated spot and only one. After that, we're going to use the DeHaan method used to allocate the games qualifying spots to see which semifinals will get those extra spots. So after 2 weeks, we're going to take a look at the men, and here is how things have changed since week number 1. Europe dropped 9 athletes out of the top 100. North America East gained those 9. Asia and Africa are now on the board for the first time. They both had 0 after week 1. Now they have 2 each in the top 100. Oceania lost 2. South America lost 3. And North America West gained 1. Massive shifts after the second week of the Open.
So, Brian, do you think that's all on the lift? Because I can't see these athletes really being knocked out of the top 100 for burpee pull-ups. Like, it has to be the lift. So this right here, what this is telling me is, okay, Europe is not as strong as in North America because there was a swing of almost 10 on both sides.
Yeah,
if you're nuts.
If you're just gonna stereotype Europe's CrossFit men, they're just not as strong as, say, North America.
I think Will Brandsetter just put it out there for everyone.
It's a very, I mean, obviously you got the Bronislaws and things like that, but just if, you also have plenty of Victor Hoffers over there, and you see like they're going to be great at gymnastics, moderate weight. But when you get to the high end strength, you don't think of Europe as being that, and that's generally what you see, especially in the top 100. Most likely, those guys that were 80th to 100 that really increased that number to 40, they probably dropped out.
All right, let's look at what the DeHaan method will turn into. Justin Medeiros actually fell out of the top 100 after week number 2. But look at this. West, East.
That was the first
East,
sign.
West.
This would have been the first sign.
First sign. This is it. Hiller knew when.
No, Halpin knew when.
Yeah, Halpin knew when. That's right. And so now we look at this is that we know that Europe dropped 9. Well outside the top 100 because they're not even in this 101 to 105. But you also see East and West as an opportunity to move a couple more people in there. And so let's look at the new DeHaan method, and here's where it stands after 2 weeks of the Open. Europe drops 2. Oceania drops 1. South America drops 1. And those 4 all go to the North America East semifinal.
Just suck them right up. Look at that.
And
stole them all.
One thing we want to look at too is that what are the implications of this if we look at what happened at semifinals? So, for example, in Oceania, Jake Douglas is sitting in 3rd. His spot would be taken in this new format if we stopped after.
But let's not jump too far ahead because at this point, Ricky Garrard is still in it.
Ah, that's true. That's true. That's a good point.
He hasn't broken his shoulder yet. So
yes, but, for all points and purposes,
so we're
just know what's on the board.
Sure, but like if you're looking at this in the Open and thinking like Ricky is still going to be part of this, like Oceanic only getting 2 and knowing what Jay and Bailey did at the games and their
Right.
potential, add in Ricky.
Right, because
You
Ricky's
don't
points all
see-
counted going into that season because
Yeah.
he got hurt before semifinals.
Right. So you don't see what Bailey ends up happening in that situation, most likely.
So let's look at other implications here at other semifinals for the men specifically. We'll go up to the European semifinal because even if they took the 12 for the men, that is one more spot than they even got last year. They got 11 last year. And if you look at your 12th and 11th place person, that's actually Fabian Benito and Colin Bouchard. So Colin would effectively make it in if they took 12 from the European region after this DeHaan change for this. But the big one here is the North America East, which, I mean, there's a lot of talk last year that that's the strongest one, at least between the West and the East, and everybody just started migrating. It's like the opposite of what's happening now. Everybody actually started to go west towards California versus
They pulled a hard 180 on that one.
and now they see it's like, oh shoot, I got 14 spots. If you look at last year, Spencer Panchek, Austin Hatfield, Tyler Christoffel, those are your 12, 13, and 14. Cool. If we're taking 14 from this point on.
Spencer made it. So it was 12 in the East last year.
Yeah, 12 in the East last year. So you got your 13 and 14 as those extra spots that they just got after this spot allocation. No changes really in South America because they got 2. Asia only getting 1 since that's the 1 spot allocation for the men. Let's go over to the women's side. They had 41 in Europe and it's dropped 10 spots after week 2 of the Open. North America East gains 7. West drop 3. Look at Oceania.
Let's go.
Oceania added 5. Africa added 2. The DeHaan change after the cut line, we've got 3 athletes from North America. Olivia Kerstetter currently sitting 1-3. Karin Friola, actually, she actually probably moved up, I would say, or 2A maybe hurt her a bit. But let's look at the spot allocation. Oceania jumped from 3 to 5 spots from that. Asia dropped 1. Europe dropped 3. North America East gained 2 with 2 and 1. South America and Africa, respectively. And let's take a look at the North America East women gaining 2. That was the normal spot that they have. So really not going to be a huge change there. Paige Semenza being your last one in, just as it was last year for that semifinal for the North America East. But you look at North America West, and that's 8. All right, 8 spots. So now the question is like, who would have gotten left out last year if they only took 8? And Kelly Baker and Bailey Rail.
Oh man,
sitting at 9 and 10, tied at 415. Oddly enough, with Danny Spiegel points back. Right, so 9 and 10 would have been knocked out. And the big one here is that Oceania move. And this is without Tia, because Tia didn't do quarterfinals. So she was completely removed from the leaderboard when it came to that. So even without Tia in using the Open so far, is that Oceania bumped up 5 qualifying spots when it came to this. And if you look at who that's going to be, Caitlin Van Zyl and Maddie Sturt, sitting at 4 and 5, based off 2 weeks of competition, 3 scored events of this semifinal system that we have going on. That's the shakeup. And now as this goes along, these swings will probably be less as we work our way towards the end of the quarterfinals. But just to show is like, that's a week 1 show and that's a week 2 show. And as we switch gears here, what are you guys' thoughts on the mood swings for semifinals so far?
Go, Brian.
I mean, yeah, you've now had two scored events in 1 week, so you have a lot of movement in that, and so like you said, it's going to have less and less, and now the focus is really going to be on those athletes in the 80 to 120 range, and what they're going to be doing, right? Because the athletes who now, after 3 scored events, who are in the top 50 are probably going to be there. We've had enough variety in the movements to know if you're the top 50 athlete, you're probably going to be there. So now we can really focus on how many people in the region are just outside the cut line and how many are just in, and you can start to see how those shifts are going to start to, how they're going to occur. And you now can focus on 40 athletes that are probably really, really important.
Because we're talking about athletes on that cut line that we probably wouldn't ever talk about and put any emphasis on the competitive nature of what their impact is on the space. Without
Justin Medeiros' 23.3 is a lot more important than it was in the last system.
And as I said earlier with Mike, is like 3 or 4 athletes in and out of the top 100 is the difference between one spot given to your semifinal or taken away.
Yeah, and I think if the men, if I remember right, there was like 3 from North America West just outside the cut line with Justin. So all 3 have good 23.3. They get that extra spot back.
Love it.
And you have to think about like how this would play out week by week through the Open. Like the fact, how someone comes out big on day 1 of semis and everyone's like, oh my gosh, they're up in the front. That would last a week and then continue on for an entire week. So like throughout the Open, we have that same excitement of, okay, well, who's going to go now? We already kind of know. We have a preview. We already know what's going to happen for this particular year. But if this kind of creeps on next year, then at week 2, it's like, okay, we now know who's there. We know who fell out of that top 100, who moved into that top 100. Now, who are these people that are that gatekeeper sitting there at the either at the 99 or the 103, trying to get their region another game spot. So there's almost teams. And now what's happening is you're getting teams within your region just trying to get allocated spots as we get more and more points, as we get more and more further and further into the Open and then into the quarterfinals.
Yep, dig it. Well, that's end of week 2. We have one more week of the Open, and then we will be 50% of the way of the events that will be qualifying people to semifinals and deciding what the strength of field will be going into semifinals. Hiller, Spin, thank you guys for rolling with us. Absolutely appreciate you guys. Thanks for the support for our fun show for the day. So Thank you guys.
Have a good one.
Bye.
All right. As we close out there, we will bring in the prettiest man I know. And oh, look at that shirt. Look at us. Look at us. Look at us. Mr. J.R. Howell, welcome to the show, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
It's a little bit later for you, so it's you're in vampire mode, I see.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, kids are in bed.
Are you doing that in their bedroom and that's why you got all the lights off or what?
It's right there with the sound machine.
White noise sound machine is right outside the door.
Well, you got to be in the background for the last week or 2. What have you thought so far based off this?
I think it's awesome. I think getting to see what the Open has the potential to bring back, you would say, is just really interesting. And I'm already like trying to figure out how the leaderboards and how the spots are going to shift after the snatch workout.
Well, we know that what is coming up, as JR said, is 23.3. And as it was announced last year, it was that snatch ascending ladder with double unders and wall walks and strict handstand push-ups in that second round. And the way this is going to shake out is, I think, a little bit like we saw in week 1, is that the better all-around maybe CrossFit athletes will rise towards that top 100 after week 3.
JR, how do you think this one compares to that first event? The first event, the 23.1, as far as like CrossFitty for the community and the elites altogether?
I think it holds up for sure as one of those classic tests in quotation marks. The only thing I would say about this is it's very heavy in muscular stamina versus week 1 just being kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Base
and then what we
capacity,
saw,
chunk skills, a little bit of weightlifting, moderate to light loads. I think this is, for a lot of people, it ended up just being, can I snatch the last weight or can I not?
Right,
and then another tier of people, can I get through both sets all 40 strict handstand push-ups. So
We saw a massive swing, especially in the European men and women, almost exactly losing maybe 9 to 10 of the top 100. And Bill was talking earlier, most predominantly leading because of that 1 rep max thruster. Do you see any of that possibly happening, even though this is a ladder, something similar to that with the between, say, Europe and North America?
I actually think it's gonna come back the other direction, but maybe half as much as it shifted the first time, if that makes sense.
All right, so we know the workout. We know who were your top 3 after week number 3. Tola Moraquinho, 744. No really surprise there. That dude just
Right.
he's so good at gymnastics, and he's one of the strongest guys in the field. Sam Cornway out of North America East. So actually, you have 3 North America East athletes in the top 3, with Jake Berman rounding out your third after 23.3 on the women's side. Danny Spiegel takes it at 742. Sasha Nieves out of South America, 745, and Emma Carey with 755. A bit more representation in the top 3 of these women, and highlights of your top performances in the women between both the men and the women in 23.3. And just revisiting, if you guys weren't here for our first 2 shows of the Open, we are looking at the top 100 now at the end of the 2023 Open worldwide. From those 100, we're going to allocate where they are in their semifinal regions and then run the DeHaan method. Again, every semifinal will just get 1 guaranteed spot for a games qualifying position at their semifinals. The next 33 will be distributed based off the top 100 men and women worldwide after the Open. So let's see what happened for the men. Europe drops another 5 spots. North America East gains another 3. West finally moves up on the board. They've been losing athletes over the last 2. South America gains 1. Africa drops 1. Asia drops 1. Oceania stays static at 4. So we are curious to see how that would happen. JR, what are your first thoughts on seeing this?
That, for the longest time, people have been screaming 2 things. 1, Europe deserves more spots, and then Oceania deserves more spots. So seeing them drop a little, but still being strong, I'm really curious to know when it all shakes out, when we see this next screen, is what everyone's been clamoring for gonna come to fruition, or is it gonna be a nope, gotcha, they actually got it right the first time?
Yeah. Halpin, you got some stuff
That's
to add?
that's why I'm here. Let's see that next screen. I think we're
All
all
right. So before we get to the next screen, let's look back at what it actually was last year for the men. 1 for Africa, 2 for Asia, 11 for Europe, 12 for North America East, 9 North America West, 3 for Oceania, and 2 for South America. So after the Open, with the top 100 spread out across semifinals, here is your DeHaan method for the men after the 2023 Open.
Oh, well, let's talk. Yeah, let's jump into the
Oh,
DeHaan method
yeah.
first.
Sorry.
Well, no, you're good. Yeah, not too many notable names here. Seth Stovall, I think a few people know him. He was actually talked about on a show this morning with Savan and the Jakes over at Mayhem. And then Seongjung Kim, hopefully I'm getting that one right, holding it down for Asia, just outside the cut line. Same with South America, Bruno Marins. If they, as we were talking about, if they can jump in, if they can do some of these things. And so if you go over to the next one, we break it down a little bit further just to show where some of these athletes are. So we've seen that Africa has 1 athlete. Darren is solid into the top 100. This does go down to the 125. So we're not seeing a Keelan Henry. We're not seeing a Jason Smith. Some of the athletes we've sort of know and are notable from the games and things like that. As Brian Spin brought up on the previous show, Ricky Garrard is still in here. So this is all pre-shoulder injury. He wasn't on a bike at the time during the Open here. So we do have a good contingent from Oceania. But as you can see here, we're going over some of these tier 2, as we're calling them, regions. who isn't here is South Africa. So if you want to go over to the next one here, we can really dive in there.
And just to jump in, is like tier 2, we're looking at quantity of spots given to them by the CrossFit Games, not the quality of the athletes competing.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So
look how many are in South America.
Yeah. And just outside. So this does go to 125, as I was talking about. They have 5 athletes in and 4 athletes right on the cusp. I mean, again, Bruno Mars, I think, as Will was calling him, is just hanging outside the door here. I was going to make a leave that door open reference there, but
that's good.
But 4 athletes just outside, and could be knocking on that door to get in. And it similar to what we saw in Oceania. I think we're going to see that again here. This is the type of movement that would be in a show like this, pushing athletes to say, hey, I can't just sail the Open and hope to like beat out my competitors here in the region. I can actually go and win something for my region.
Right. I mean, you look at, say, okay, 101, look how close you were. Should you have pushed a little bit more on, say, that one workout where you're like, oh, it's just a top 25. Who cares? I'm going to quarterfinals, right? What does it matter? I don't need to push there. Now, you better get that extra burpee pull-up. Or that extra, or those extra 5 pounds.
You go to the next slide. Look at the names on this list. Who do you not see? You're good. Guy Malheiros. He finished the Open in 420th first place. That's the type of athlete that I'm talking about, that they never really had a reason to do the Open at this level. So getting inside the top 100 by the end of the Open or by the end of the quarterfinals through this whole thing, that can really matter. And you could see athletes like a Guy actually push for more spots because he was the odd man out, if we remember back to the semifinals. Right. So him doing well in the Open could have actually pushed more spots in there.
Well, I mean, you got 4 guys knocking on the door in the top 100 already without Guy Malheiros. And now you're looking at 5. And as you said earlier, 3 to 4 in and out is the difference between an extra spot. And I'm pretty sure Guy would have liked that extra spot last year at semifinals. All right, I jumped the gun a little bit, but let's take one more look at what the actual spots were last year in 2023 going into semifinals. Africa 1, Asia 2, Europe 11, North America East 12, North America West 9, Oceania 3, and South America 4. Here are your Open DeHaan scores after the 2023 season. Europe drops another 2, and those 2 spots go to North America. East now has 15 spots after the Open. North America West has 9. And if you want to take a look back at what we're coming from, Europe lost 1 based off what they got last year. North America East got 3 more, and the North America West was relatively the same with 9 spots. Oceania, only 2 though. Hasn't changed since week 2. Not to overlook what they don't have, but they have lost a spot that they were guaranteed last year from the beginning. Let's see who would be in on. We'll just start with. Let's just start with Europe for the men, as they dropped from 11 down to 10. So your 10th spot for the European men goes to Michael Wesolowski. Actually, I think that's totally said it wrong, but I was really good at it. Fabian Benito.
Man.
Right. And then, let's go to the other side and we look at North America East. Now they're rolling with 15 qualifying spots when they had 11, or sorry, they had 12. And that is actually going to be Austin Hatfield, Tyler Christoffel, and Evan Rogers in 13, 14, and 15, where last year Spencer Panchek was the last man in.
Hatfield's pretty good, right, JR?
Yeah, he's really good, man. I was really, really impressed with him before Crucible, just like some of the things he did in Wadapalooza qualifier, and then obviously missing out last year by 1 spot in his first individual competition. So Crucible was his second. But I mean, seeing him in person,
second event.
It's his second individual competition. I mean, here's the deal. Like I know I'm a little bit of a homer, very biased when people come and do my competition, but 300-pound snatch, 400-pound clean. You see what he did with a really, really high skill-based programming against some games athletes and other athletes that have been knocking on the door. And I mean, he's really, really good. And his background is like soccer, baseball. And I mean, so he has some endurance. He has some freaky strength. Like I think he's just got like a 235 strict press for 4 or 5. Like he's got that, and he's built for it, right? Like his anthropometrics are perfect. So I'm I know I'm playing him up, putting some pressure on him, but I expect him to make the games going away this year.
All right. Well, that is your men's DeHaan game spots after the 2023 CrossFit Open. Let's look to the women 100 spots. Europe lost 2. South America gained 1. North America West gained 1. East still sitting at 30. Africa has 3. Asia 2. And Oceania still rolling with 11. Damn. Your cut line on the outside looking in. South America has 1 on the outside. Matilda Garns and Astrid Peterson. Those are 2 European athletes that they need in that top 100 that they lost after 23.3. And then obviously anything the East and West can pick up, Allison Scudds being one of those names that we know. And then, Halpin, you're looking at who could be making a difference. And the reason why we're showing this is because we are actually closing out the Open and we're all eyes on quarterfinals. And these athletes in red outside the top 100 need to know where they stand in the top 100, and knowing full well what's about to happen in quarterfinals is all on them and their other 4 athletes. Let's just look at South America, for example. If those 2 can get in, they may give themselves an opportunity to get that extra spot where they wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Sasha, Louisa, and Victoria, names we know. Sasha from Proven and Louisa and Victoria from Mayhem. But the real story, I think you were saying it on the previous slide, Africa has 3. Brian Spin called it out early when this got announced. They can't get more than 1. These are the 3 athletes that could go and do it. And we're not seeing some names we obviously know from the Africa women's side. So that could mean even more. Lee, Christina, and Mariska, they're doing what they need to do to stay in the top 100. We'll see if they can stick around through quarterfinals.
Moving over to Oceania, as we said, they had 11 inside the top 100.
And it's an 11 without 2 very notable names. One
and
the biggest name.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cara won't be there again this year, but Tia is coming back. But then again, it depends on where she gets allowed to compete next year. I'm curious what that looks like as well.
Right. And like that point I made 10 minutes ago, that was actually, I had the women on my mind. So I was thinking about the European and the Oceania women that everyone's been saying, hey, they should be getting more. They should be getting more. It wasn't the men. I apologize for misspeaking earlier. But when I look at this list, and obviously like Down Under just happened, and I think about what you said with Cara and Tia, I would be more shocked than any other result if we see this slide coming up and they're not getting more spots than they got last year.
Well, on cue, this is what they got last year before we get to what they get after the Open. The women, Africa got 1, Asia 2, Oceania 3, South America 2. I'm going through those because those numbers are what they got from CrossFit before they even ran the DeHaan method. They got no extra spots after the strength of field calculation using the worldwide ranking system. Europe, North America East both got 11. North America both got 10. So let's look at what the DeHaan score looks like for the women after the 2023 Open. Europe drops down to 11. Now, that is the number that they had last year. Oceania holds at 5, but they have 5 versus the 3 they only got last year. Asia, just 1. Africa, there it is. Africa has 2 spots after the 2023 Open, with South America getting their second spot after just allocating one, and then lowly over there in the North America West, eight women out of that. And as we saw in week 2, that's Bailey Rail and Kelly Baker missing out if we looked at the semifinal finishes from last year. What do you guys think about Africa getting that second one now?
It's monumental for them.
It shows the
they've only ever had
potential,
one.
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's what you want. I mean, what's great is the fact that we want there to be an inclusive. We want everyone to have representation, so they have that. But then this also allows for, if you have your level of athletes that are able to bump up into that top 100 spot, you now mathematically deserve to have more people represent your region at the games. And I think that's what's really cool. They've never had that. It's like, here's your one token spot now, or whatever it ends up being, and we'll divvy it out to everyone to everyone else. But now it really matters. And now when you have those athletes that are very close, I would make a road trip up and say, hey, I'm going to watch you perform so you can get into the top 100, because I'm number 3 guy and I need to get in. So I'll be there. I mean,
yeah, you just look at, like we said, Australia holding on to 5 with all 11 women inside the top 100. Now we're shifting focus. The Open is over. This is accounted for 50% of the strength of field for semifinals. Now we're going to look towards quarterfinals. You would hope that those 11 are getting in a group and saying, we have to stay here.
Right.
We have to let's all go to a gym for the next 2 weeks leading into quarterfinals and make sure we push each other to stay in the top 100. South America, same thing. We saw 2 or 3 outside the top 100 that could potentially get in. Now they should probably get together. Now these are the names we're talking about, right? We're not just talking about who won. Who is the best? Like, we're talking about people on the cut line. People, we talk about storytelling all the time. We're talking about people we've never heard of, and now we're putting a massive importance on who those athletes are after we look towards the Open. So, Halpin, we're rocking and rolling. I'm going to drop you back as the man behind the curtain and bring a man who forgot his shirt.
What is up?
He is pulling an Andrew here. Mr. John Young, welcome to the show. I know you've been in the background watching this, sipping coffee and doing bicep curls, but you got to watch
Ovaltine, actually.
Oh, Ovaltine. Nice.
Yeah.
You're 60 years old. That's good. What has this been like for you, seeing these 3 weeks go, just using the Open for the scoring system so far?
Dude, I love it. I love seeing the differences. I love seeing Europe get the respect that they're getting. And quite frankly, I don't want to give Halpin too big of a head, but I feel like this is how we should do it. I don't know why we're not doing it like this, because I think it's so much better than what we have going on right now.
I'm just going to bring you in so you make sure you can hear that.
I heard it. Thank
you guys just joining all of these.
I'll take my shirt off. I'm so
all these slides and numbers. This is all Mike Halpin. So if you guys like what we're putting out there, thank this man. All right, get back in your corner.
Get in your box there.
Get back in your box. All right, we are done with the Open. And so if you guys are just joining us, we are doing the semifinal strength of field using only your performance in the Open and quarterfinals. So if you guys don't remember, last year quarterfinals, there was 3 submission windows during quarterfinals with 5 events taking place. Events 1 and 2 were due for submission window 1. Events 3 and 4, submission window 2, and the 5th and final event for submission window 3. And we are going to recalculate the top 100 and game spots allocation after every submission window. Now, as this leaderboard shakes out, this leaderboard that Mike put together is combining the Open performance and every submission window performance in the top 100. So you are getting the real-time top 100 after every submission window, not just the top 100 in the quarterfinals only. So let's take a look at what we have coming up in this episode. We've got quarterfinals submission number 1. And in this one, we have 2, I guess I should say what they called them then. Even I don't want to, tests for the quarterfinals. And as we look at the first one, it is that ascending ladder of squats with descending weights, handstand walks, muscle ups, and chest to wall handstand push-ups. We saw that as event number 2 was the double or the single cross unders with that 12-minute AMRAP, dumbbell snatches, and overheads. John, seeing these 2 events as the first one, JR, thank you for your time, sir. Now you got to bounce.
Sorry, we don't get to talk, JR. Have a good one.
Those babies.
Oh, good, John. John, I expect my wife not to be able to fall asleep when the voice raises and you go on one of your rants. So I'm expecting that when I jump off.
I'll try to keep it somewhat quiet.
Thank you
No. I
very
love
much,
it. I love it. When it's a party when you start to raise your voice. That's what we need.
Yeah,
Are you serious? We need that. We need that kind of response. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, JR.
Better, JR.
So, John, when you look at these events for the first 2, after what we've seen coming out of the Open, what do you think about what type of effect it might have in different semifinals based off what we've seen so far?
Well, I think the first event would be kind of similar to I'm willing to bet the first event is similar to the first event in the Open. I love the first quarterfinals event. I'm interested to see what the results are, but I bet they're pretty similar. I don't know if they are or not, but that's my guess as far as like how many spots make it. The second event, that's anybody's guess. I hated the second event. Guys, I don't know if you did the second event. I was one of those people that could not do the crossovers. I could not figure them out. I can now, but I couldn't then. And I'd get to the dumbbell and do it unbroken and then just sit here for 2 minutes to do 40 freaking crossovers. So, and I know I'm not the only one. So, I guarantee – I don't know how that would skew – are crossovers more prevalent in Africa than they are in North America? Maybe that's Africa's shot if they just master crossovers.
That's a good point.
So I think that workout in itself, I think, is a little skewed just because of that skill. But I don't know how that will show up. I don't know how that will show up across the world.
Well, I think that'll be one of those things that we talked about with the 1 rep max lift is if someone really F's up on those crossovers and they're an athlete that's sitting up at 80th, with it, they have a chance that they can get dumped down. And so you can have a shuffle just based on that weird movement. And it's not like John, it's not like you're a bad athlete, but all of a sudden you get something, you're like, what the hell is happening with this dumb crossover?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was a lot of discussion about that particular movement, but that's one of those movements that if you have someone that's up towards the line, you could have some shuffling up there at the top. And that's important for some of those athletes, especially if you're in Africa or South Africa.
Well, and this is what we're looking at is that, okay, how is the different semifinal regions going to perform with these events? And we look at the top 3, 2 out of Europe in the top 3 for the men. If you look at the women for quarterfinals test number 1, 2 out of the North America East and 1 out of Europe for event 1. And let's shift over to 2, and you see West, East, West with that top 3 for the men. On the women, after quarterfinals test 2, Oceania with Ellie Turner, Emma Carey, and Von Thurman Moe out of Europe. Highlight scores for the top 2 events are here linked on YouTube. And if you're just joining us, we are running a strength of field calculation for the semifinals only using the worldwide performance in the Open and your worldwide performance in quarterfinals. We have finished the Open and now looking into quarterfinals. They will combine for a total top 100 leaderboard. We had Mike Halpin do all that back end work. Once you find the top 100, as it's currently rolling with quarterfinal submission 1, we will allocate spots. I got to bring him in right away.
Just do it.
I'm going to stop talking.
Just do it.
I have to bring this guy in right away. 3:00 in the morning at whatever country you are. Pedro.
Hey.
Mr. Coffee Pots and Wads. Thank you. What's up, buddy? Good morning.
If you're expecting any sort of analysis of any weight from me.
Did you just throw your headphones on while you right before or after you went to the bathroom or what?
This is green screen. I'm actually still lying down in bed.
Oh, this is great. Welcome. So, all right. So let's look at the top 100. Again, these are your 7 semifinals. Every spot is only guaranteed 1. we're going to use the top 100 combined rolling leaderboard from the Open and quarterfinal submission date 1 to see where your top 100 are. And here they are after the Open and stage 1 of quarterfinals. Europe has gained 4 in the top 100 for the men. North America East dropped 5. West added 1. South America dropped 1. Africa now has 0. Oceania has moved up to 6. Now, if you guys remember, after the Open, they only had 2 games qualifying spots after the Open. So these 2 athletes moving into the top 100 could be big for them. So let's see what happens after we run it. And there it is. Those 2 spots got them 1 extra games qualifying spots after quarterfinal stage 1.
It's huge.
South America East dropped 2 spots, now down to 13. Europe got 1 spot back. Asia and Africa still have their 1. South America still have their earned 1. That's an important thing to note. You only got 1 guaranteed spot. So South America still has an earned 1 spot, but Oceania got that 1 back after just 1 week, or 2 events in quarterfinals.
See, John, they don't do double under the crossovers in North America East at all. Look at that. Just what you wanted. They do in Europe, but they don't on the East Coast.
Well, I thought the first event would have shaken out the way the first event in the Open did, because the first event in the Open was very heavy towards the Europeans, wasn't it?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
40.
that first quarterfinal workout just seems. I know they're not the same at all, but it just if you're good at that one, you should be good at the one in the quarterfinals. You just got to be a little bit strong, but not a lot of it. So,
Pedro, I know we're not going to get a lot of analysis from you, but Halpin threw something in is something I feel like you're getting better at is marry, fuck, kill, Oceania, Asia, and South America.
Hey, I don't like this. He killed me the last one he did, and I don't think that was very nice. So,
John, listen, someone
over
has
and
to
everything
bite
for
the
you,
bullet.
Pedro. And look at that.
Someone has to bite the bullet.
Now, if you guys go ahead, Pedro.
I just sorry, Asia. Okay, you can guess the rest. Move on.
If you guys don't remember the spots from last year, 1 for Africa, 2 Asia, 3 Oceania, and 2 South America, with 11 for Europe, 12 for the East, and 9 for the West. That's what they actually got last year using the worldwide ranking. But with our system, after just phase 1 of the Open, Europe has the 11 that they did get last year. Oceania got their 1 back. Asia did lose 1. South America North America East still has 1 more than they had got, with 1 less on the North America West. So if you look at that, we can take a look at what the West would be. On the Oceania semifinal, obviously Jake Douglas will get his 3rd place finish back now that Oceania got their spot. On the men for the West is that we'll look at what that 9th position is. That was Cole Sager. So that's the number of spots that they did get last year. So we're pretty close to what we had last year so far after 1 stage of quarterfinals. Let's look over towards the women. After 1 stage, there's some red out there. And all that red is jumping solely over to the North America West women. They gain 6 as the East loses 2. Europe stays the same. Asia still keeps 2, but those 11 at Oceania now down to 10. And Africa loses 2 spots, so they could potentially lose that 2nd spot that they had after the Open, with South America in 3 as well.
a lot of double Dutch in California.
Sunny out here, it's sunny out here.
Let's click over to see what the spots are now. And there you have it. Africa did lose that 1 extra spot that they had gained after the Open. Oceania dropped 1 from 5 down to 4. And North America West gets 2 extra spots that they didn't have earlier, which is matching what they had gotten last year. North America West also had 10. After stage 1 of quarterfinals, that's where it stands now as we look forward to stage number 2. And this is where it's going to get interesting, not just because it's the quote moving day of the quarterfinals, but some of the more unique tests.
That's one way
As
to put
far as that's one way to put it. We have the basically a clean and jerk test for test number 3, but the one that we all fell in love with was test number 4, and that was the unveiling of the V-up. And what a wonderful idea this could be if you thought crossovers could throw a wrinkle in the leaderboard qualifying for semifinals. We'll see how V-ups shake out. So let's take a look at your top scores in submission 2. Norman Woodring at 357. Demetrius Fatio out of Europe and Jeff Adler are your top 3 for the women. Laura Horvath takes Danny Spiegel by 3 seconds, and Paige Powers just 3 seconds behind her. How close that was with people not competing next to each other was pretty fascinating for test number 3. Justin Medeiros ties with Yonakoski for 600 reps. I'm sure that felt amazing the next day with Samuel Cornoyer with 592. On the women's side, the dynamic duo. And another tie at the top, Ellie Turner, Olivia Kirksetter. I feel like this was the time where I thought Olivia could probably have a chance at making the games if she's doing this in what people would consider just a cardio grinder event to match her strength. This is where I thought she actually may be setting herself up for a potential run at the CrossFit Games.
I definitely think that was definitely the Jacob Hepner influence for sure. I mean, he pushes her so much. So you're right. It's good to see that she actually had an engine. We knew she was strong, but I didn't think she had a mature enough engine yet, especially on this event.
This is a sneaky, like, really great workout for her.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that she was first place in this. I wonder if Ellie and Justin judged each other. That's just odd that they're both first like that.
Well, and especially with so much rowing, I would assume someone more built like Annie would fare better on what was considerably a row workout. But then once you got into it, you realize that just the core fatigue and muscle, like local muscle failure, that was a big part of it too. And long levers is not your friend when it comes to a V-up.
No, sir.
Or a GHD sit-up.
Question for you guys. Do you think we will see those again, seeing that there was so much
No.
Hell no.
You think they're done? I didn't expect that answer to be so abrupt.
That was kind of like when they tried kettlebells the first time and people were almost getting fights on the regionals, and then they're like, okay, we're never doing that again. Don't even joke about it. All you're gonna do is farmers carries, and that's it. That's good.
That's good.
At least that's what I hope anyway.
I'm in favor of no more V-up. I was just curious what y'all's thoughts were.
Pedro, I am actually curious of what your thoughts are so far on this concept of using open and quarterfinals only in competition just for the semifinal strength of field.
What the fuck is going on? No, I'm joking. I like what's the likelihood of this like being achievable? As in, like, I really like the concept. I really like the idea. I guess my question is, there's so much scope for them to fuck this up. Like, is this, what kind of manpower would this take for them to get it right and for them to turn it over quickly enough? Like, is this something we could
One Mike
actually
Halpin.
see
One
happen?
Mike Halpin.
Well, this is with the benefit of hindsight, though, as in, like, in real time, and there's
it's harder to retroactively go back and score this than it is to just get it in real time.
Okay,
that's an odd thing to say, but it's true, because if you did this in real time, all you're doing is looking at the top 100 in the open every single day. And then all you're really doing is looking at the quarterfinals top 100 every single day.
I guess you have to wait
retroactive. I have to like look in the middle. And then, yeah, that was going to be my other point, John, exactly, is that this is easier to look at if you're going to say like, well, I tried to say it as many times in here as I could. This is all tentative. And I'm trying to treat this as like if it was a live show right after the events happened. But you're going to see swings, especially that V-up workout that you all were just talking about. I mean, I knew athletes that dropped like a rock from straight out of qualifying for semifinals just because of that V up. And so that could definitely swing things. And so if you're going to present it like this right after it happens, and then basically say like a week later or a few weeks later, like, oh, by the way, this is all different. There is a final show here that we'll get to. And that the idea of that is for it to happen after it finalizes, take out the teams as Chase talked about, and then be able to do that. As far as manpower at the moment, with some of this already done, it would take me maybe an hour prep before the show.
They would only need a small team.
Right.
Good. That's all they have. That's good.
What about the fact that, say, like the quarterfinals window closes like a week before semifinals, like that side of things? Does that kind of mess it up where you could do this show and then there could be some drastic changes before that final show?
Yeah,
well, they got that problem either way, but I don't
Yeah.
know where you were going to go, Chase. Yeah.
Honestly, like we said, is like we think this is a more engaging system for people to follow and a more meaningful system for athletes to compete in heading towards semifinals.
Right.
And regardless, they have to finalize the quarterfinal scores
do it anyway,
before semifinals. So
and their system today is somewhat similar to this. They're going to do 17 spots versus 33, but their system is also they can't announce those spots until they finalize. So, like, I mean, they're going to give 5 to the bigger regions and whatever it is to the smaller ones, but like they can't say that North America, Eastern Europe has 10 until they've finalized. And so I saw a comment early on of like, even with this system, like the top 100 would then, you'd need to basically go down and watch reviews down through the top 100 because then it really matters here versus just applying some points over the last 2 years. That's really true. Like they would have to really dig in and say, like, did we find the right top, not even just who made semifinals, but who was really in the top 100.
Well, but I think like whenever they finalize their numbers, whenever and as they're playing out, I mean, it would just be basically a number grab, right? You just grab the numbers that are there. It wouldn't be us necessarily doing okay, was that video good or not good? Did it pass or not pass? It would be like, okay, once all of the numbers flush out, then all this stuff can happen. The only thing we can't do is say, okay, well, we know what did happen, so let's go back and see, well, who would have made it in or wouldn't have made it in. We just say, here's who's on the bubble right now. So what we're doing is we're pumping all that up and then talking about the top 100 as far as like who's going to get because of that top 100, who are these other names? And you know, that allows us to talk about other athletes that are in our space that would never normally get talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know,
I also think it's just a great way for people to give a shit about the Open and quarterfinals.
Well,
I mean, at the end of the day,
it matters.
Yeah.
It all matters, top to bottom.
And all we want all year is stuff to talk about, like a logical reason to have to talk about stuff. Do you know what I mean? And if you have an extra, whatever, 4 or 5 weeks that you have to talk about stuff, this is what we want. I will say, though, it is pretty fucking risky to start a branch off podcast from a podcast. It's a dodgy move, Chase.
I love it. All right, so let's move into week number 2. Halpin, thank you for jumping in to help us fine tune what's going on here. And so let's look at what we have coming up after quarterfinals submission number 2. That's event 3 and event 4. Any guesses or bets on how this middle combo is going to shake up the top 100?
I think North America East is going to have plus 2 people, and North America West will have plus 2 people, and Europe will have minus 2 people, and the other 2 will come from somewhere else.
Bill?
That was very specific.
I was just waiting for I think Europe's going to lose some spots.
Right. That's what I was going to say too. I think that I'll split your difference a little bit on the North America. I'll go 1 to the West, 3 to the East, but I think Europe's going to lose. I'll say Europe loses 3.
And don't worry, Pedro, I'm not going to ask you.
Africa gains 6.
Yes.
Hey, Oceania was really strong, right? Oceania might gain some too. 'Cause
Yeah,
they
Oceania
gained a
had-
lot in the thruster, right?
They gain a lot in the thruster one. They had 11 in the top 100 after the Open and 10 after submission window 1. Again, if you guys are just joining us, we are only allocating one spot, one guaranteed spot to every semifinal. The top 100 of the Open and 2 submission windows in quarterfinals will be our leaderboard, and then we'll run the calculations off of that. And whoops, the men in Europe go
I was
up.
talking about the women. I didn't know we were guessing for the men.
Right. Yeah, of course. And the men gain 2. Now, I bet that would be more
V-up.
centered around the V-up one than anything versus the lift. North America East drops 1. West stays the same. South America loses 1. Africa gains 2. So they were at 0. They got 2 back in the top 100 after stage 2 of quarterfinals, matched with the Open. Oceania drops 2 and Asia keeps 1. Your top 100 cut line. Europe, even though they added 2, now have 3 more athletes waiting in the wings. So this is where we start to look at going into this. This is after phase 2. We have one event left to determine who's going to semifinals for 1, who's going to be in the top 100, and how is that top 100 going to allocate the other game spots. There are 3 men outside the top 100 in Europe who just got 2 more people in the top 100. North America West and East add 1 more with Daniel Cook and Mark Hutchinson. This is what we're looking at. Worldwide, 72nd in Asia. You've got 2 not necessarily solid in Africa after the second scoring stage of quarterfinals. We have 1 event left to go, so they're hanging on by the grit of their teeth. Oceania, Luke Fowler out in 122. He's going to get a phone call from all 4 of these guys and say, hey, bro, we can't have only 2 spots to the CrossFit Games, but South America has 4 on the outside looking in. And as we're talking to Halpin, 3 or 4 guys back in the top 100 is almost a guaranteed spot using the DeHaan method. So after the second window, we are now looking at a 1 event opportunity for these 4 athletes to get themselves in the top 100 and get South America 1 extra games qualifying spot. And this is what it looks like. 11 in Europe, almost no change after stage 1. Stage 2. North America East with 13. This is the first time we've had no change across the board after a semifinal. Asia gets their 1, Africa 1. South America still holding on. Like South America still has that 1 earned spot with 2, and they have 4 guys on the outside of the top 100 going into the final, then a quarterfinals. They could have a shot to get 3 spots to the CrossFit Games.
That doesn't seem right. like I'm sorry, but like if you take the top 6 guys from Oceania, all 6 of them will beat everybody from South America except maybe Guy.
Right, except
and Guy's not even in the graphic. Is he in the East?
But, I mean, like here is what is happening. Whether it doesn't seem right or not, like the numbers are right there.
I get you, but that does not.
America has more people in the top 125 than Oceania does.
Yeah, no, it's off for performance. 100%.
Do it, John. Do it, John. Lose it.
I'm with you.
Are you serious?
But when did I say that? When did I?
Wednesday the 12th. Wednesday.
I don't remember.
Between 4 to 6 p.m. Central.
I understand. It's based on performance. For 100%, South America is deserving. It just doesn't seem right because I know in the games.
You're right. Exactly.
The Oceania will be way better. Everybody. Like you go down top 10 and it probably would still be better than top 2 in South America.
And that's why this is so fun to go through and make this matter more, because then maybe Oceania is not effing off anymore. just limping their way towards semifinals, knowing they've got their top 30 guys and realizing that spots are on the line now, and South America has basically a 2-man
Are
lead.
taking them to school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what we want to see.
And it's also it's another leaderboard that we aren't used to seeing, a running leaderboard from the Open straight into the quarterfinals. So it's compiled that way. So it's not like, once you're done with the Open, it is what it is. And now we're looking at the quarterfinals all by itself. Like they're all together. So that we're building that top 100 there. And that makes the numbers a little bit different. But we also know that no one cared about the Open the last time they did this. So that's where these numbers are. So if they did care out of the gate, you're right. These numbers would probably be a little bit different. At least I'd hope so.
And again, this is where everything stands after the Open combined with quarterfinal 1, quarterfinal 2, and 1 event left in quarterfinals going into the 3rd submission date. These are your numbers with 1 week, 1 event left to go for the men, which we'll get to after we close things out. For the women, after the 2nd quarterfinal stage, North America East gained 4, and they took all of them from the West.
Civil war here.
29 still in Europe, 2 in Asia, 1 Africa, 3 in South America, holding strong with 10 in Oceania. This is your top 100 after 2 submission windows in the quarterfinals, combined with their performance in the Open. Solberg out of Europe, outside looking in. Everyone in Australia is looking down here at Marnie Sykes and saying, please come back up to the top, because we enjoyed those 5 spots we had going into quarterfinals after the Open. And then you have East and West. But the other side, we focus a lot on here. These athletes need to watch their back too. Oceania, 98th with Georgia Pryor. East and West, East could take another one, right? If West drops out. And then Africa holding on, like they need that. They need that and probably +1 going into that. And so let's look at some of these other semifinals. And Mariska Smith in Africa, she's at 118 with the only athlete in the top 100 currently, Christina Leviticus. In Asia, they have 2, 35th and 76th.
Props to Dawan, however you say that name, because
Dawan Young.
she's freaking killing it.
That sounds dangerously like John Young.
I don't know.
It sounds more like John Young than Chong Young does.
I was going to say something that would for sure get me canceled, but it just sounds like they said John Young's name. That's what I'm going to say. South America, 3 in the top 100 with 1 on the outside looking in. We are only looking down to the top 125. And then we have Oceania, who had 10, but they have 2 more that are inside the top 125. Mike, I'm going to bring you back in before we look at the final week of competition and get to that last 100 spots after that 5th and final event in quarterfinals.
Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
And so as we shift gears here towards that, closing out, this is where it stands. We do have shifting for the women after 4 events in quarterfinals and the Open. North America jumps to 12. Like we said, they took 4 spots from the East. So the East drops down to, the East goes to 12. West women drop down to 9. If you look at the West women, right now, Bailey Rail is actually holding on to that 9th position with Kelly Baker on the outside looking in. The West actually got 10 last year at this semifinal. And they're tied at 415. So if we looked at who would be out and who would be in based off the number of spots they got, Bailey Rail would be holding on to that 9th place position. As we said, the West, the women in the East, they have 12 for the women in the East. If you look at Paige Semenda is in 11, and Annika Greer who was the odd one out, now back potentially in a games qualifying position if the East were to get those 12 spots. Shifting gears, it's all coming down to this. We've gone through 5 scoring weekends, 3 weeks of the Open, 2 quarterfinal submissions, 3rd and final one, 5th and final test, as we are determining who not only will be actually qualifying for semifinals out of quarterfinals, but what the top 100 is going to look like, as well as what game spots are going where. Test number 5 for the men, Pat Vellner. Guy Malheiros makes a surprise appearance in the competition, getting second in Luis Oscar Mora. We look at, on the women's side, Laura Horvath basically dominates everybody by 40 seconds in a sub 5-minute event. Emma Carey and Mal O'Brien just behind her. Overall, this is your quarterfinals overall. Justin Medeiros with 27 points, Pat Vellner, and Dallin Pepper. These are your top 3 coming out of the quarterfinals only. Mal O'Brien dominates the field. Now, what was interesting here is I don't think people remember is that Laura Horvath actually beat Mal O'Brien in, I believe, 4 of the 5 events. Yeah. But it was that one event, I think it was event 1 with the handstand push-ups, that Laura did so poorly in, is where this point discrepancy was. But if you just went event to event, Laura won 4 out of the 5.
Hence why Laura will beat her in the games.
Ooh.
Guys, did any of y'all do this workout?
No, I had one arm.
Bill, did you?
No, I didn't do this one.
I cannot tell you. Ask me, John.
I wasn't going to ask you.
Thanks for not asking us.
Yeah. I cannot tell you how much this workout effed me up. If anybody wants, this is one of the sneakiest workouts I have ever encountered. And I guess these people are just, fit enough. It's not sneaky. But I got to the last 9 rope climbs at like 5:30, and that workout took me 12 minutes.
That's what it was. It was a rope climb event. Everyone raced to the rope climbs, and then it was like, okay.
Yeah, I did 3. I did 3 rope climbs, and I literally could not feel my hands. It felt like how Rich Froning in 2010. Rich Froning is. I'm like, and like the people at my gym were looking at me. They're like, "Bro, why aren't you climbing the rope?" And I'm like, I can't hold on to air. Like it was insane. So frustrating.
That's funny. All right. Top performances in test 5 as we go into our final top 100 calculation with a twist at the end. From these top 100, we're taking their performance in the Open worldwide matched with their performance in the quarterfinals worldwide into one scoring top 100. As your map again, we start only with 1 guaranteed spot. Everybody gets 1, and now we have 33 more games spots available. Here is your men after the 5th and final event of quarterfinals, and the Open North America East gains 1, Europe drop 1, West drops 1, South America, we were curious, could they get another spot? They gain 1, Africa loses 1, Asia bumps up 1, Oceania holding steady at 4. Only 4 in the top 100 after quarterfinals and the Open. This is your 100. 3 men in Europe fell out of the top 100 after the 5th event. That opened up the door for some Kylan Souza moving into the top 100, North America West and East as well. This is how close it was. Jake Douglas dropped out of the top 100. Zeke Grove got close. They were 16 spots away. Kike Servanet and Benjamin Gutierrez were getting close. So South America and Oceania, 4 for 4 in the top 100. As you see, Africa and Asia as well. And here are your final, not necessarily official yet, top 100 men after the Open and Quarterfinals. Europe has bumped up to 12. North America holding at 13. That's the East. The West stays at 9. South America keeps their earned spot at 2. Africa at 1. Asia at 1. But Oceania lost that third position after the 5th event of quarterfinals.
What do you think, John? They lost one. What do you think?
I think it's funny how it's kind of pretty similar to what it ended up being in the first place. I think that's pretty cool because it's a different way of going about it. I do think this way is better, but they're not far off, right? And like not being far off, but giving the right people like the right amount of spots to, like, for instance, Europe. I think is way, way better than not being far off and giving those spots to like in Asia or Africa. No offense to Asia and Africa.
And we'll touch on that at the very end of I think why that's important, even if they're not far off or even if they're the same. And I think that'll be a good closing argument for a system like this. Let's shift gears to the women after quarterfinals. European women gain 2. Take those, 1 from the East and 1 from the West. South America still has 3 in the top 100. Africa 1, Asia 2. Oceania still holding steady at 10. Your top 100 after the Open and quarterfinals. North America East, West, and East. You've got on the outside looking in, Marnie Sykes so close to bumping up to try to get 11 spots for the women as Andrea Solberg. And look at that, Europe, all jamming up in there.
Chase, that was mean, man.
What?
You've been building up Marnie Sykes this whole dang show that she's going to creep in there, and knowing that she didn't make it. I feel like you've said Marnie Sykes after every workout. Man, Oceania, hold out hope. Marnie Sykes is going to do it, and then
down everyone. That's not what I meant.
Maybe she would have tried a little harder if this was real. She had Chase on her back the whole time.
Did it not feel like he was building her up this whole time?
I didn't even think about that when I was doing it. But all right, here's your top 100 all the way down to 125, how close it was for South America, Asia, and Africa. And Oceania actually got almost even closer. Sykes out by 1, so they still have 10 inside the top 100 with Grace Walton at 106. And here is your final after quarterfinals and Open. North America West loses another. That means Bailey Rail and Kelly Baker, who were 9th and 10th at semifinals last year with the 10 qualifying spots, would miss out. In Europe for the women. On the women's side, you have, this is a good one. As I share my screen, Europe got 12, and that 12th person last year, if you guys remember, was Jacqueline Dahlstrom.
Oh, wow. And the lane 8 controversy never sees the light of day.
John. And she never joins HWPO. Everything changes. The whole landscape.
Listen, guys, this is why Mike created this, because he's so mad about all the hours he put into lane 8. And this never happens if that comes about.
Retribution.
Yeah, Chase is like, man, Halpin,
full circle.
I don't understand why he's so keen to do this. And Halpin's like, lane 8.
Don't worry, it'll happen.
So there you go. So Jacqueline Dahlstrom gets that position that Europe got in here. As we said before, Oceania does claim one more than they were given officially last year, and that spot would actually go to Caitlin Van Zyl, who was 4th at 525. And then remember, Maddie Sturt, if we just got that extra,
was a step behind.
Just that
She's
one.
On the upswing now.
On the upswing.
It's interesting as well, though. Like if you so Grace Walton was in 6th, it's interesting that there could be somebody who's sitting outside the top 100 who goes to semifinals. And I love the idea that the other people would be like, "You fucking dick!" Like, all you have
Right.
Yeah, I guess if we're gonna go on the train of just running people over with buses, 106 Grace Walton, and then where's my girl?
But
Where'd you go?
she went team.
Oh yes, that's
Yeah, so that
another
is
important
a
piece
good
of
point
the
to bring up one in
puzzle.
the next
Angel,
week.
what a segue!
I think.
What a segue!
Go ahead. Yeah, the segue. We should segue. I'm not gonna.
So, all right. So here's the deal. That is not the end. That is just what the strength of field looks like more with how the game system does, because they use the strength of field after 2 years of competition in a worldwide ranking. Open place finishes, quarterfinals place finishes, semifinals, and CrossFit Games with a 2-year block of competition, adding those points together. But from the open to quarters, you get more points. From quarters to semis, and then games, you get more points. Here, we're looking at just open and quarters as the performance, but their strength of field, they never remove team athletes from the strength of field or age group athletes from the strength of field. And in my opinion, when you look at strength of field, you're telling me I want to see the strength of the field of the athletes who are on the competition floor competing against each other. So we had Mike take the extra step, and the preliminary finish of what we just had all team athletes in the top 100. We have now gone through and we are taking out all team athletes from the top 100, rescoring the top 100, and redoing the DeHaan method to see what at all would possibly change with the strength of field. And before we get there, these are the men athletes removed from competition on the top 100. You have 3 from Europe and 3 from North America East.
And what does 3 mean, Chase?
3, yes, thanks you, Mike. And 3 being that number where you could potentially lose a qualifying spot. And here's the subtle change of your top 100. No change in Europe, even though those 3 dropped out. But from the East, now keep in mind, those people going out, new people are coming in when it comes to this on the top 100. North America East lost 2 spots. North America West gained 1. And Africa gained 1, taking out team athletes from the strength of field.
And this is for the men, right?
This is for the men. So this is your new top 100 after we take out 2 team athletes. South America, Kike Severnay was just 1 out. Europe, no change there, but you do have these East and West, and Keelan Henry sneaks up in there to get Africa at least 1 more athlete in the top 100. And here is the change. With team athletes removed, the East loses 1 spot and the West gains 1 spot. Now, if we look at what the real numbers were last year, if you look at the East, they had 12. They ended up with 12. But the West, who had 9, now they end up with 10. So what does that mean? We go to the North America West using the strength of field of the Open, and the only people competing live in competition, Mitchell Stevenson out of the West busts his stick of always missing by 1 place and
Pops his cherry. Is that what you're looking for? Pops his game cherry.
Now he's made it before. But he always seems to be that last man out, and he gets in if this system was in place in that 10th qualifying spot. So there is a change with this system, at least when it comes to the men.
What's truly remarkable here is that for 2 weeks, I have struggled to use a clock while talking. And Chase is managing to fill dead air while bringing up a leaderboard, click through multiple slides. All I'm thinking of is I can't even click go and stop.
He's like a casino dealer right now,
Wait,
talking and
Chase,
slinging drinks and
Chase.
slinging cards all at the same time.
Are you telling me when we take the team athletes and we put them in individual that Marnie Sykes has a chance to be in the top 100
Uh-oh.
at the end of this rodeo?
I
Is
guess.
Is that what you're telling me?
I don't know. But let's also forget the one thing we didn't say was Oceania still gets 2. So they lose 1 spot based off what they had. And then Europe gets that extra spot. So there's no change there, but there's a change. And at the end of all of this, you do have a change for the men. Now let's go look towards the women. More athletes on the women's side are removed from this. You have, 8 that were in the top 100 prior to, as well as another 3 that would have been in the top 100 if they had stayed.
A girl.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Arnie.
He was,
Failed.
as Chris is pointing out in the comments, she was on Royce's team.
Guys, this show has just turned me into a Marnie Sykes fan. That's the only thing I'm taking away
This
from
is the
it.
most airtime she's had in
That's true.
any CrossFit
You know what?
station.
Hey,
That
go
is
follow
Marnie.
Marnie Sykes if you're watching this.
Yeah, there
okay?
you go. Oh, Marnie is going out with Bailey Martin.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Look
true.
at that.
Good for
See?
them.
But okay, so here's I love actually that John is pointing that out because now we're talking about more athletes. How often do we hear we only talk about the favorites or we only talk about the best or we are talking about people that are in like the bottom 100 or that you would have never heard of otherwise. And we are telling you that these people actually play a major role in what happens in the CrossFit Games season. Isn't that what we want to do?
100%. 100%.
All right, so here's what happened. North America East lost 3. West gained 1. No change in Europe. Asia still holding on to 2. South America gets 1. And Oceania gets the one that they didn't have after teams pull out. This is your top 100.
Look at
Grace
China.
Walton.
She is.
Look at that. She was at 106.
Gracie Walton.
Now she's
Underdogs
up to
athlete.
96. Valentina Rangel out of South America moves up in the top 100. In Europe and Africa, look how close they got. Mariska Smith, just 4 spots out. And so what we want to look at is you were only 4 spots out. What could have changed in your performance in, say, the Open when it didn't matter to you that would have paid dividends 6 to 8 weeks down the road and maybe got your semifinal a whole nother games qualifying position? And I'm not putting that on Mariska. I'm just saying on any athlete that is close to this cut line to get into the top 100. That's what we want to look at. That's what we want to talk about. And here it is. One more change. Oceania still gets 4. Asia, Africa 1. South America earned that spot, so they have 2. West goes back up 1. They were at 8. So that Bailey Rail gets that spot.
Kelly
back.
Baker.
Oh, and Kelly Baker was 10th.
No.
So Kelly Baker was
Bailey and Kelly were tied. And then
right. But Kelly was 10th. Bailey was 9th on the leaderboard.
This is the most Annika Greer thing to happen in CrossFit.
And
she's the reasoning.
she's in all the time, and then the very end, it's like, oh, sorry, we took out the teams. You're gone, Annika. It's like, oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, we took out all the team athletes, and it made it worse for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Bailey Rail gets her spot back because originally they only had 8, so that meant Rail and Baker were both out after or before team athletes were taken out. So Bailey, who was in 9th, gets that spot back. And as you said, Pedro, is that Annika Greer, who had the 12th spot, had it taken back. And just for an example of what they actually got is 1 in Africa, 2 in Asia. So they had lost 1. Everybody gets 1 to start. Europe at 11, East at 11, West at 10, Oceania at 3, South America at 2, and Europe got an extra 1, and that was Jacqueline Dahlstrom, who was 12th last year
right
in
it
the
was.
finals, and they only took 11. Oceania got 1, and the one they took from Asia to Europe and the West from Oceania. So Oceania taking it from the West. And now here's your fields of 40 for semifinals. based off your top 40 after quarterfinals. 12 games qualifying spots go to the East. Notable athletes left out because last year they had 60. Alex Vigneault, who qualified 57th, would not have qualified for the North America East semifinal. For the North America West. For the North America East, this is for the women, 11 spots. No notable names were left out as far as games athletes. Not necessarily you're not a notable human being. It's just we're going through games athletes.
You heard it from Chase. You don't matter.
Yeah. I'm just steamrolling everybody now. North America West, 10 spots for the men. These are your top 40. Again, 20 basically wouldn't have qualified in this new format, only taking 40. In the North America West, 9 qualifying spots. Bethany Flores would not have made the top 40 based off her finish, which was 52nd out of quarterfinals. She had ended up qualifying 15th at the CrossFit Games that year. Europe also losing 20 spots. They're only taking 40 this year. Yelahosta for the men, 12 qualifying spots. And think about that. Dude gets 10th, should have been rookie at the games. And,
And listen, this next year, it's going to be really hard for him. He's going to be on the cut line of making semifinals again. He's a very, Brent Fikowski had struggles like this too. And Yelahosta is not as good as Brent Fikowski.
I wonder though when the bar is moved, if you'll just move to the bar. Like when when the line is moved. Was he just that close to not making it because he was?
Well, that's the retrospect argument, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 44 and 60 are pretty close to each other. Like that's not comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I guess we can look at who was right on that cut line for the men in that top 40. Go to the women's side. They'll also get 12 spots based off this. Rebecca Wittison, who had qualified for the games out of the European region last year, 25th at the games, 55th after quarterfinals. So all things considered would not have made the top 40. Asia got their 1 qualifying spots, and they have 10 new athletes in the field for their semifinals for the men. I'm not going to say these names because we'll just start sweating.
I think you should try.
And then
wait. Can we just go down in the line? You get the name that you pick on. So Bill gets the first one, and Peter will get the 5th one. And
I feel like John, you have to say number 1.
You want me to say number 1?
Yeah.
Oh, I was talking about the green guys.
Oh, you don't want to say.
John Young. I'm the best Asian woman in CrossFit. Y'all don't know this?
I'm just trying to get you canceled because I feel like if you said it like there, it'd be like you trying to use an Asian accent to say your name.
John Young.
Okay, there we go.
All right, well.
I think
it's a shame this show is never going to happen just off the base of the last 5 seconds.
All right, Nahyun Kim, Siwon Hung, Mei Hazan, Shai Zhu Hung, Haibin Zhou, Nina Huna, Jamie Ng.
Look at you, bro.
Jin Wee, Liran Jin.
These could all be wrong.
Now, listen, I need Sevon to do the exact same thing. That would be the best.
I'm actually kind of surprised how that went because, oddly enough, their names are way easier to say to me than any European name.
Yeah, you did great.
Those were good, dude.
All right, let's get out of here before. Let's get out of here. All right, 10 more athletes.
Here you go. You can say these ones too. These ones.
We got the South American women. Did I skip the men? No, I did not skip the men.
Hold on. Is Macarena Vlasovic? There's no way that's Spanish.
How did you find that so quickly?
That's a Russian name right
what
there.
About
Living in South America.
Schneider.
That's a German if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are we talking about that Argentina contingency, that lineage there? Are we gonna?
Oh gosh, Chase,
I mean,
bring
we're 2 hours
into this.
Yeah, no, I didn't say.
What are you doing?
I didn't say that. I just said German heritage. That's all. Yeah. Know your history. All right, moving on. South American men taking 2 qualifying spots. Andron Primo actually makes it back to semifinals. And if you guys don't know old regional days is Andran Primo was one of the better heralded dudes in that regional for a long time. So cool to see him make it back up there in the top 40 if they are going to take 40. Oceania women with the 4 games qualifying spots, they're also getting 10 more. And I don't think anyone's really talked about that as much as these other semifinals, is that Oceania is getting 10 more spots to semifinals than they did the year before. I didn't think about that. And for the men out of Oceania, only 2 qualifying spots in this format. As we come towards the end with Africa getting 10 more spots, 1 games qualifying spots for both the men and the women. And that brings us to the end. And as we look at this now, we were only, a couple of spots different, Oceania, Europe, and North America, taking out all the spots. Very, very close, not too dissimilar from the worldwide ranking. And this is where I wanted to wrap, is that we got to spend, obviously these shows would be on a weekly basis, but we got to predict, talk about athletes that we would never normally talk about week in and week out, actually having impact on games qualifying spots in the season. We were close enough that I don't see a major issue with this format for one, right? It doesn't shake up the entire world. It does have some small changes. So when you look at this, the question I'll put to you guys, and John, I'll have you go first, is that if it's this close, does it show that this is a feasible system that doesn't change much based off what they had planned? And we're not saying like good or bad on the worldwide ranking. We're just saying that's the system that they had. With the emphasis is puts on the Open and the quarterfinals and the engagement on a week-in-week basis, is this something you would see viable to actually use as a new system for qualifying people to the CrossFit Games?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like we ask this question all the time: how do we make the Open matter? And because the athletes don't care about it. And the easiest answer is money. There's not enough money. They're raising affiliate fees. There's not enough money to go around, right? So like to make it matter that much for the athletes, especially the like the smaller tier guys like the Marnies of the world. And I also think it's really important that the 1 or 2 spots that are in the different regions, I think those matter a lot. For instance, if you gave West 1 more spot, Danny Spiegel's in. Danny Spiegel makes a difference at the games. Yep. You gave 1 more spot to Europe. Jacqueline Dahlstrom gave us one of the greatest moments in the games. We saw a little girl lift a really heavy sandbag.
Yeah.
And, that sounds stupid, but it was freaking awesome, right? She spent 40 seconds to lift that sandbag that most men can't lift. And that's those 1 or 2 spots. And so like I know it's like not it's very close. It's very close. Like what I don't want them to think like, well, if it's that close, we'll just do what we have. Right. Because it's not like it made a big difference. It does make a big difference. Those 1 or 2 spots are everything. And then like you guys said, it makes the Open matter. You can update it week by week. So that's talking points, right? Everybody loves that. Like it makes the whole little season matter. Especially those on the brink athletes, the ones trying to crack the top 100.
Well, and I love that point you just made, just to go back to, so this is the women's final DeHunt allocation. If you look at Oceania, that 4th spot's going to Caitlin Van Zyl. You can't tell me that she had the potential to do something at the CrossFit Games last year. This spot that, Bailey Rail got back, okay. Annika Greer losing out here. But as you said, that Jacqueline Dahlstrom that you get in Europe, like these are athletes that can and have made an impact in competition before. They're not just like arbitrary. But this random person made it because of that. Like there's names that are and aren't making these things.
And I love what I'm not biased about this. I love this comment, but my dad just said a comment on here. Earning spots is way better than allocating spots.
100%.
And
there we go.
that like hits when you say it like that.
I just like covering up Pedro's face with the comments. It's,
I think that is. I think the numbers are close because we're taking the performances and the feelings of how it was last year, and so that's why we don't have a big swing. I think if all of a sudden all the athletes where the Open mattered and the quarterfinals mattered, I think that there would be a little bit more of a difference. Maybe not a huge
and they
difference.
know it's on the line because
Exactly.
Mike made up is like, look, you 4 athletes in South America by name, if you get into the top 100 in this next event, going into the last event of quarterfinals, you can get your entire semifinal an extra spot to the CrossFit Games. Like, knowing that information, we talk about making something matter, right? But as you said, it's like, would you rather it all come down to the final event, or you'd have done more during 3 weeks in the Open prior to quarterfinals?
Right.
And you think about it, those people, they'll know who they are. Can you imagine the gyms? Like, say your gym, you're in South America. You know how the freaking South America CrossFit Championship, whatever it's called, like they're crazy, the fans down there. Like if you get your gym and it's Anderson Primo, and he can make the difference.
Right.
Can you imagine everybody gearing behind that guy to absolutely send the last quarterfinals workout? And then,
okay. On top of that, can you imagine knowing that information and getting someone local in Brazil, because I think that's where Primo's from, go to his gym with a little media crew, local crew that we can get in contact, like CrossFit can get in contact with, and just live stream it?
100%. Yeah.
Well, you also
And
have
like,
to think of even redoing workouts. Like, I mean, that's always like a little bit of a touchy subject. John said he couldn't feel his hands after a little bit in that workout. But like, you have athletes that probably did this final workout on Friday or Saturday, but they're going to look at something like this and go, oh, wait, I could probably fix it by 10 seconds. I mean, that sounds probably like a lot, but if I just stop staring at the rope one last time and actually get up there, I could possibly jump up the leaderboard and make a difference. And like you said, put a focal point on that affiliate, like win something for this community in this region, where right now it's just sort of like, well, I did the workout on Friday. I'm fine where I am, and I'm going to make the semifinals, but I don't really need to go back and do this.
If you're a top 100 athlete, and I'm talking like up towards the top, you're not a known athlete yet. You're a good athlete. I mean, you're a badass. You're up there. But if you were coming up to that last event and you and one other athlete or whatever needed to get into that top 100, and all of a sudden Jeff Adler and Pat Vellner show up at your gym to root you on to get you in so that your region can get 2 more athletes in there, you don't think that you're going to go a little bit faster? You get to hang. You're going to have the best of your.
You can see them giving you tips. Hey, do it like this. I promise you, this way's faster.
That's right.
They need. It's right. They're riding on your performance too.
They are riding on your performance. You do. So all of those things, like whether the numbers are the same or not, one, earning spots is always more important. Just like what your dad said, John. Earning spots is always.
I feel like they would like CrossFit more if that was the case, because they just like to lift. They don't actually like CrossFit. So
totally true. But I think that's it's not that it hits in the heart. It is that, but it's just the right way to do it. This is a competition. It's like make the spots count. You have your inclusion. Everybody's there. Everyone gets their one spot. Now everyone has to earn the rest of the spots, and you have community engagement all the way through. You have, and not just because of the show, but because of who you're talking about each week. You're talking about athletes that would never, ever get the conversation, never, ever get any media attention on them at all, other than who's in their gym. Unless they're like, they do decent in an event at Wadapalooza or something like that, because they're able to kind of hang in like one event.
But one of the good things, like one of the main things that people miss about that sanctional season, was that there was consistently something to talk about. And you had that sort of like, that kind of football season thing where every week made a difference and there was a change and there was something happening. It's like an actual legitimate talking point. And you have actual legitimate talking points here that are coming on a weekly basis. And you can talk like retrospectively about the previous week and talk about what's currently happening and then talk about what could potentially happen next week. So you've got this whole different scope of talking points, media coverage, and this is the stuff that everybody is crying out for. Like, there's not enough this, there's not enough that. And like, yeah, they're talking about money and there's not enough to make stuff matter financially, maybe, like John said, but you have this perfect solution to two separate problems. And my only concern coming into this was, well, what's the manpower requirement? What's the time requirement? Is it actually feasible? But if, like, no disrespect to Mike, but if Mike can do this on his own, like, there's no small team excuse.
Respect taken.
There's no small team excuse. There's no budget.
With
excuse.
all due
There's no-
respect.
Yeah. With all due lack of respect, Mike.
To what John's point made earlier was we talked about the women and bills he's making now. I just went back and look at South American men after the third and final quarterfinal submission. Guy is still somewhere out there in the bottom, outside.
Crazy.
And he won quarterfinals.
But, okay, so here's the next thing. South America got 2 spots even without him effectively like trying that hard to get in there. Mm-hmm. And where did Guy finish? If Guy went hard enough and 2 or 1 other, as you guys were saying earlier, and they get a third one, Guy's going to the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what we're talking about here.
And you can even see it, like, I'm just thinking here, like camps, like Mayhem, HWPO, like majority are in one region. Like Guy's mostly an exception there for him, but like Augustine Raquelme probably is right next to him. And the 2 of them at Mayhem could take everything else that Mayhem's telling them and say, hey, we can actually try here and do this better and figure this out. Same goes for like the program in Europe or like some of these other camps that they could actually get people together and say, hey, we have to go do really well for Europe here. Like we can fight another day with some of these other camps, but we got to figure this out. And so that could be another storyline that just gets introduced by making it matter here versus just a 2-year look back where it's just sort of like, well, Tia was there last year, so Oceania should get a spot, or like some of the
like that annual wrestle over like continental points or continental places, and then it splits off then at semifinals of like, all right, screw you guys, like we're on our own again.
Yeah.
So, all right, Mike, you crushed it.
Serious work, dude.
I'm
Nice
glad you
job.
got other people on here because I would have put myself to sleep. So thank you for putting this together, Chase.
No, thank you for all the time and effort that went. Like those are the coolest graphics I could have never ever dreamed of making.
And honestly, they made the explanation much easier. I can't think of how Chase would explain this without those graphics.
Yeah,
quite frankly.
technicals wouldn't have worked.
It would have been impossible. So, Mike, thank you for all your work. That made it awesome. Thanks to all the guests that came on the show. John, Pedro, thank you for waking up. I think it's 4:10 in the morning.
10 past, 4:10.
All right, yeah.
And I actually feel like I look like I've had a stroke, and I'm like a little bit concerned that my left side of my face is droopy.
Yeah, but and then most of all, thank you guys for joining the show. Thank you, Savan, for giving us basically the time slot, and everybody else pushing and thank everybody guys for showing up. What if, right? And here's the thing: if it's not going to happen,
It's going to happen.
If it's not going to happen, it's still going to happen because we are going to do this every week during the Open and quarterfinals and just drive Mike into the freaking ground to be making us all the type of content.
Chase, don't you work at CrossFit? Can't you talk to somebody to make it happen?
I work on
Do your part, bro. Come on now.
He's taking calls from affiliates all day.
That's right.
Yeah, I had 4 hours of affiliate calls today.
I'm just
Wonderful. But like if they want to show, if they want to see it, they have Instagram DMs that you guys can send this video to. So.
Hey, there were a couple people in the beginning that were confused on what you have music playing. Why is there's an intermission? You guys, you have to understand that the idea that Chase was putting together was all right, let me package this together so you can see what it looks like week by week. So yeah, there were a couple commercials or like intermissions and the music, and that was the show feel, not normal podcast setup.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know, like that's why that was that set up that way.
Yeah. These
So,
would be like
chopped
a
up.
week
That would have been like
one
8 different things.
weekly show, one-off, 15 minutes with music and graphics and leaderboards and everything else in between. So, all right.
Great job, Chase.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
Thank you for putting it together, Chase.
And from when you first brought it up on our show, the idea to this, you're right. The graphics made it much easier to understand how it was going, why it was going, the importance of where it was going. So, great idea. It was a great idea, man.
I just want to show it's possible and how exciting it can possibly be. And if it's not going to go that way, then we'll manufacture our own fun next year.
Totally.
All right, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Pass on the word, share it with your friends, and realize that we may have stumbled on something great. Other than that, happy Friday. Have a great weekend. See you next time.